Welcome to the FaithFlex podcast, your sanctuary for soulful exploration and practical wisdom, where spiritual growth joins together with the hustle of daily life. I'm your host, Monica Roxanne. I'm so glad you decided to join me and countless others because this is your moment for reflection, for growth, for real life change. Whether you're seeking a whisper of inspiration or a robust blueprint for action, the FaithFlex podcast stands as a testament to the daring spirit within all of us. So, to my pursuers and my dreamers, to my doers and believers, our journey awaits. Welcome. Hey fam, this is your girl, your host, Monica Roxanne. I'm super excited to have you again for another week on the FaithFlex podcast. So this week we're going to talk about design for purpose. We're going to dive into a profound truth that each of us has been intentionally created by God for a unique purpose. And so we're going to jump into Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, and we're going to discuss what it means to be God's workmanship and explore how each of us has a unique role in his divine plan. So what is purpose, right? Based on the Webster Dictionary, it says a purpose is the reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. Now, as a verb, it could mean has to have one's intention or objective, which is purpose. So if we're thinking about purpose in its noun sense, it's basically saying you or I, there's a reason for which we created, that we're here while we accomplish the things that we do. And then, or if something actually exists, why is it here? And so I like to approach it from three different perspectives. So the first is purpose as a divine assignment, right? God has given, there's a God-given mission for each purpose, each person that is uniquely designed to fulfill. So when we're talking about purpose as a divine assignment, God has strategically placed us here for his will or for on a God-given mission that only we are designed to fulfill. And we can see that in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5, that says, before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you. And before you were born, I consecrated you. And I've appointed you as a prophet to the nation. So what that's saying is, even in conception, God knew exactly why we were born on this earth. He's like, you're coming to reside on this earth, and there's things I need you to accomplish while you're here. And he says, before you were born, I consecrated you, which basically means that I've given you every single tool that you need to accomplish what is set before you. So everything that you put your hands to that is of good rapport, that is of good tithings, I've consecrated you for. And then for that, he speaks in this case, and he says, I have appointed you to the nations. Whatever your assignment is, if it's being the best radio host or podcast host, being the best communicator, being the best business strategist, being the best designer, whatever it is, you are appointed for this moment, for this time, and it is not by happenstance that you exist. So if we're going to say, if you're here, what's the divine purpose? It's purpose as a divine assignment. Now, there's another part of purpose, is purpose as intention, right? So the intentional design and reason behind being created. So it's God's specific intent for each life. And so oftentimes I find that people, even myself, sometimes we struggle with that, because like, do we really have free will? Or is our lives and our future, essentially planned out for us? And what I speak to that, or what I say to that, is this, is that there is a roadmap that I believe God has created for us, because it says that he knew us. And however, I believe he gives us the freedom to choose if that's the road that we are willing to walk down. And I think in Psalms chapter 139, verses 13 and 14, it says, For you formed my innermost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb, and I will give you thanks and praise to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. So when we're talking about intention, it is that we were created on purpose. We were created with intention. There is something that we are purposed to do, we are designed to do those with intention. And I think we can start with the things that we enjoy, the things that gives us peace and we find fulfillment in, is where we start. And I believe then on our road of discovery and life, we will find that it starts with, I love to cook, and now I have a TV show that is blessing other people in cooking, or I love to cook and now I have a restaurant in cooking. So I think when we think about what is purpose as a form of intention or point of intention, is God says, no, I there's something I need you, only you can do. And this is only what you can accomplish because I said so. And so the other part of purpose is purpose as alignment with God's will. So living in a way that aligns with God's will and his values, his calling on your life, and his commands. And we can find that in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. And it says, and do not be conformed of this world any longer with its superficial values and customs, but be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by the renewing of your mind, focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes, so that you may prove for yourself what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect in his plan and purpose for you. So when we're talking about purpose as an alignment to God's will for your life, this really has to do with your values and your calling. So if we go back a bit, we can talk about, like, his thoughts are not our thoughts, and our thoughts are not his thoughts. And so, but what we should be pursuing is his will for our life. So we are like, God, I want my thoughts to be your thoughts. And he's like, okay, then you're aligning with my call and my will for your life. But if you're like, God, I want to do my own thing, he's like, cool, do that. Just know that I have a better pathway for you that I've designed for you, but I will never take away your ability to choose. And so I think when we're talking about living in a divine purpose, I want to encourage everyone that watches podcasts later or listen to it streaming, is that you're here for a reason. If you're still waking up in the morning, you still have breath, there's a reason you're here. And I want to encourage you to take the moment and the time to really decide, or just petition God and say, God, why am I here? If you haven't found your purpose, but if you have discovered your purpose, then say, God, what else do you want me to do? How else can I reach your people with this gifting? What else do I need to pursue in order to fulfill my purpose and destiny on this earth, which is to bless his people and to give him glory. So let's just talk a little bit more about purpose. So if purpose is the reason for which something is created or made or exists, in a biblical context, purpose refers to a divine reason God has for each of us and his creation and the intended path that he has for us. Remember, it's about intended. Doesn't mean that you have to take that path. You can choose. If you don't want that path, you don't have to take it. It's up to you, but there is a sweeter reward on the other end if you do. Purpose also implies the alignment of God's will for your life, where one's actions fulfills the good works and he has prepared. So if we're talking about a purpose-driven life, isn't it, it's just a purpose-driven life isn't self-centered, but God-centered, right? It's focused on the greater good and that he has orchestrated for us, for a world and for the world around us. So if you say, Lord, I want to live a purpose-driven life, it's not about what I want to do, but God, what is it that you want me to accomplish? And it's focused on the greater good. So waking up in every morning and being of good intent. I have a scripture that I live my life by. Like, my moral value is rooted in the scripture, and that's Proverbs 27:19. It says, "As water reflects faith, the heart of a man reflects the man." And that really just speaks of the character. So if your heart is full of love, joy, compassion, and of good intent, then that's going to reflect in your day to day. But if you are bitter and angry and spiteful and of pain and deceit, that's going to show up in your day to day. And so I believe when we're looking at a purpose-driven life where it's not self-centered, but it's God-centered, it's God-focused, then you're really focusing on the greater good and what he has orchestrated for us in the world. So let's talk about living a purpose driven life, which basically means, essentially, It's actively engaging in the plans of God that He's ordained and trusting that what He's ordained for your life, or the pathway, or the giftings, the opportunities, the aha moments, all of those things are designed for us for specific roles that He can to bring Him glory. Let me use myself as an example. The role that I'm in at my job wasn't something that I worked towards per se. I have a working IT background. I just knew I was going to be a programmer one day, but then life happens, and I ended up being in Louisiana, and then I was looking for a job, and they're like, "Hey, we want to hire you, but we think you'll be better in this role." And now I'm in this role that I never considered as an option, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And the sweet blessing of it is that I get to use my IT background in this role. And now I live in New Jersey, working a fantastic job. I have great people, and I have momentum in my career. It's not a job; it now is a career, a profession. I'm an expert. I am a consultant. I am a subject matter expert in my field, and so I that's based on purpose, right? And so for all the opportunities, some are detours, some have different pathways. And again, remember, you have free will. So that's based on your choice, how you operate in your life. And so having your heart rooted in good intent and center around God's values and His principles, and allowing those values and principles to become your values and principles, then He can orchestrate your life where you're prosperous and you're content and at peace. One of the things about purpose is that purpose is not static. So if you are stagnant, or you're doing something the same and you've been doing it for the last 10 years and there's been no growth, I will encourage you to revisit and take a look at where some areas in your life that you can improve on, and focus on there. Now, I get it. So when you get older, like I'm 43 years old. So when you're older, you really don't want to be looking that far ahead. You're just like, you know what? I've been working really hard. I just want a moment to breathe. Even if you're not grinding as hard or aggressively as you were in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, I would suggest that even in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, listen, if you're still breathing, there's still work for you to do. If that means volunteering in a charity, if that means sharing your expertise with the younger generation that's in your field voluntarily, whatever that is, there is still um, room for you at the table, and there's something that you can offer to the people on this planet, the country that you're in, the community that you're in. So purpose is not static; it is absolutely dynamic. There should be growth, and if anything, it involves we growing in our faith, right? It involves us walking and always centering ourselves around the principle of God, such as love and kindness and humility and obedience. And I think that's oftentimes, with life being busy, especially where we are in this political climate and economic climate, there's war on the horizon. It's really easy to be distracted by all of that. But if you're intentional and you're living your life on purpose, you'll remember that my life is not my own, but the Lord guides my footsteps. And so living a purpose driven life involves seeking God's direction, living with intention, and using your gift to serve others so that God gets the glory. According to the scripture, a life rooted in purpose is a life prioritize God's will above all else, manifesting His kingdom on earth. And when we live our divine purpose, we find fulfillment and joy as we operate within God's intended plan. And so I want to just run past a couple of scriptures, because you guys know I always love doing scripture. So the first one is Psalms chapter 139, verse 16. It is coming from the Amplified version. It says, your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were appointed for me, when as yet there was not one of them. And so I think when David writes the Psalms, he says that in your book, in the book of life, my entire days were written, and it was appointed for me. And he says, even in my unformed substance, you saw who I was. And so Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21 says, many plans are in the man's mind, right? So whatever is in our mind, we have ideas, we have perspectives, and all of that. We take those ideas, we take our perspective, we take our desires, we take our own will, and we place it at the altar and say, God, and during our prayer time and meditation, through counseling and conversation with people that we trust, and says, what are your thoughts? And say, Lord, is this part of your will for my life? If so, direct me, guide me, let me be strategic in my walk. Because at that point, if he says yes, then you already know that you're appointed for that time. So I love Romans chapter 8, verse 28, and it says, and we know with great confidence that God, who is deeply concerned about us, calls all things to work together as planned for the good for those who love God and to those who are called according to his plan and purpose. It is so important that we remember those scriptures, because purpose and plan is part of our journey, a world of discovery. And the exciting part is when we are trying to live a purpose driven life or living on purpose, it's really just very simple. It's using your gifts and talents, recognizing that every gift, right? Me starting this podcast, me having this conversation with you over the radio waves, while you're listening or driving or working, is a gift. Me having the ability to create choreography is a gift. Me being able to communicate technical skills is a gift. Me being able to design technical skills is a gift. um, Me loving the beauty of reading and diamond painting is a gift. Why? Because I can recognize it as a gift and use it for God's glory. Share those gifts, bring joy and happiness. So recognizing the gifts God has given you and actively using those gifts to serve other people, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your relationship or in your community or in your churches, wherever you go, let God be the very presence that they people see. And that's through either their engagement with you or the gifts that you offer and you share with others. The other way I think of to living on purpose, if you will, is setting goals that align with your faith, right? So create goals that reflect with your commitment to God's values, such as kindness, humility, and service. So part of that is self-care. Part of that is mental health, being mental health or having mental health awareness, taking care of your bodies, taking care of what you listen to. Make sure that you're listening to things that are going to uplift you and provide restoration. Love on others, speak good word into others, but setting goals like, what can I do to increase my faith? Or how, what are things that tend to knock me off my game when things are getting rough, or just that becomes distracting? What's distracting me, essentially? So being active and creating those plans is important. The other is intentional daily decisions. And that's hard because right now, life is life, and there's a lot going on in life, and it is easy to be overwhelmed and distracted. It's easy to fall into a rhythm that you're just trying to survive throughout the day. You're trying to meet deadlines. You're trying to meet needs for people, your husbands or wives, or children or grandchildren, or family members, or community, or friends. And sometimes that's just overwhelming. But making everyday decisions that reflect a purpose driven life is just investing in a good relationship, right? Taking time for yourself, investing in worship. Listen, if I am some of the things I do in the morning just for myself, I get up and say, Lord, I thank you. They're called breath prayers. And I'm like, Lord, I thank you. I thank you for this moment. I thank you for the opportunity to wake up this morning. I thank you for another opportunity to get it right. Sometimes it's just breath prayers, right? Sometimes it's listening to worship music. Sometimes it's listening to meditation music. Sometimes it's listening to a sermon. Sometimes it's listening to a good motivational speaker. Whatever it is, be intentional about your day. You control your day. Do not let your day control you, right? Because it's really, really important that you don't allow um, just the world to dictate who you are, but allow God to be your driving force on your way, on your road to destiny and purpose. And last but not least, just serving your community, helping other people. Listen, volunteer, engage in outreach. It's a perfect way to fulfill purpose, because you begin to see everything I have that I've worked hard in, either in school, I've become a master of. I can share those insights and those things with others, and then it uplifts others. And if that uplifts others, they uplift others. And then after a while, we have a whole trend going on. So volunteer and engage in outreach to fulfill your purpose by extending God's love and his care for those who are in need. But I also include just personally developing your own faith, right? Remember that when you're living on purpose, you're being intentional, it's growing spiritually. So whatever that looks like for you, if it's following a pastor online, if it's going to your church or your community church, if it's connecting with a friend and having great conversation with your friends. Like one of the things I love about my besties is that although we talk about girly stuff and we talk about life, there's times we get into conversation about how we see God in the chaos. Like, there's things that are going on. You're like, God, it could have been worse, but because of who you are in my life, I thank you for protecting me from it not being worse, right? And so, and we encourage each other to see it from a different perspective. And so, I think when you were continuing intentionally developing your faith and strengthening your hope in God and his principles, and also in the people around you, surrounding yourself with good people, you'll live a purpose driven life. And so, from an apologetics point of view, I like to offer that is really understanding that God has a unique plan for each of us that's essential to our faith journey. And so, believing that God knows every detail of our lives and has a future plan for us, just like Jeremiah 29:11 says, offers comfort and purpose. And so, it's and I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. This is not really a theological stance, but it's a relational truth, right? That this should connect us a with God in our relationship, that we're building a relationship with him. In order to understand what the purpose is, you have to know God for yourself. And if you don't understand or know how he impacts you as a person, how he guides us ins and outs, and as we navigating through this road called destiny, sometimes we'll miss who he is, but you have to develop a relationship with him. There's a great book out. You guys have heard me talk about it. It's called Relational Intelligence, and by Dr. Darius Brown. So if you looking for how to navigate relationship with individuals and also your personal relationship with God, it's a fantastic book. But when you're thinking about God's plan for your life and living on purpose, it's about just really aligning with his plan. And when you align with his plan, you align with his wisdom, his sovereignty, his love, and that ensures that our lives are meaningful and impactful to the kingdom. So with that being said, I told you guys we're only going to be here for a few minutes. You know how we do on the FaithFlex podcast. And I just want to make sure that I came on this week to encourage everyone to seek God for your purpose and plan. And if you already said, listen, I already know what my purpose is and I know what my plan is, continue to grow. Don't stop. I don't care if you're in your 50s, your 60s, or 70s. Now you may not have to pursue it as hard, but there's always something that we can do to continue to become better. So live intentionally and understand that you and I are God's workmanship. And when he created us, it was a good thing. So embrace the path that he has set for you, and know that not only are you living your life to fulfill it, but you're also living your life to bring him glory and advance the kingdom on earth. So I really hope that you really enjoyed this episode. I hope this episode blessed you. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope that you will join me next week for another episode here on the FaithFlex podcast. So remember to flex your faith. Until next time, thanks everybody. And that's a wrap on today's soul-stirring episode of the FaithFlex podcast. I hope you're leaving feeling uplifted and equipped to turn your everyday experience into stepping stones for spiritual growth and practical living. Thank you for tuning in and sharing your time with me. Be sure to subscribe, share it with your friends, and leave a review if you enjoyed the journey today. Your support means the world to me, and it helps bring this message to more listeners who are searching for harmony between their spiritual walk and action. Until next time, remember to flex your faith.